Good afternoon and welcome to this special edition of the Federal Executive Forum celebrating 16 years of profiling IT mission programs in the federal government. This is our 9th annual Profiles and Excellence program, which will be coming to you from the virtual studios of WTOP and the Federal News Network. I'm Luke McCormack, and during today's show, we will discuss IT program success stories at numerous government agencies and hear from the key leaders making them happen. With me on today's show are Raj Iyer, Chief Information Officer, U.S. Army; Sunny Bagwala, Assistant Commissioner and Chief Information Officer, U.S. Customs and Border Protection; Keith Jones, Chief Information Officer, Department of State; Kevin Cox, Deputy Chief Information Officer, Department of Justice; Jonathan Albom, Federal CTO, ServiceNow; Nick Saki, Principal Technology Strategist at Pure Storage; and Chris Perry, Technology Strategist, CTO Office, BMC Software. All right, we're going to talk about the state of the state, and we're going to start with you, Raj, and ask you to discuss your best accomplishments and for your top mission programs that you want to outline.
Hey, good afternoon, everyone. So to say that 2021 was an unprecedented year would be an understatement. And so before we talk about accomplishments during this year, it's really kind of important to put some context around, what the year was for the United States Army. So obviously, everybody, you're all tracking, our retrograde of, operations from Afghanistan. And as we were winding down operations there, that's the one that's been, most public and open to media and obviously open to a lot of controversy and discussion. But, behind the scenes, though, what we saw in 2021 was the fact that the United States Army had to support, through the National Guard, civil unrest all over the United States, from the nation's capital to many of the state governments. Our National Guard was busy working, putting out wildfires in the West to hurricanes in the South and everywhere across the world. Our National Guard and our reservists were busy, jabbing needles in the arms for COVID. And while all of that was going on, we saw the world change around us to the point where we see now China as a pacing threat. And we see, aggression from Russia, and that's just most recent news. But none of this has been, things that just happen overnight. These are things that have been, cooking for the last, 5 to 10 years. And so the geopolitical environment is dramatically different from, where things were just a few years back. Now put that in the context of what happened with COVID and the government workforce moving remote, put a huge stress on, in terms of how we've traditionally operated as an army. And so that was the environment, under which, I assumed the position as the CIO just over a year ago. Mm-hmm. The CIO's office, by the way, was a brand new office in the Department of the Army. So I was brought in almost like an entrepreneur, leading the establishment of a new office. And to me, with that background, with that context, it was really important to kind of balance the near-term priorities and ongoing operations with the reason why the office was stood up in the first place, which is for us to be forward-leaning and for us to keep up with the changing pace of technology. And so that's a hard balance because, you can be focused on a 5-year, 10-year horizon and then say, hey, I'm just not going to worry about what's happening today. And so it was, like I said, 2021 is truly an unprecedented year. And my expectations going in were really, it was just, there were obviously hundreds of things that were going on all at the same time, but it was important to pick and choose what I wanted to prioritize. And it was very clear that if we decided to prioritize everything, nothing would get prioritized. And so we did a couple of things. And this is, deliberate decisions we made early on. The first of which was, given that we are a new office and a new position, it was really important for us to establish what our strategy was, because, the best execution without a strategy or a vision, is not a good recipe.
It's a dream.
Absolutely. You got it. It would be a dream without a strategy and a vision. And so, so despite the fact that, it was very tempting to jump into all kinds of ongoing work, it was important to set that strategy. And so we spent, the first half of the year really building out the Army's first digital transformation strategy. And associated with it, a number of implementation plans. There was one for cloud, there was one for data, one around zero trust, and then one around how we were going to modernize the network. And so we focused on these priorities, and then we identified, near-term targets and opportunities that we were going to go after. So on the cloud front, the big success in 2021 was us establishing a fully accredited cloud environments, with two of the hyperscalers, Amazon as well as Azure, and in both unclassified and classified environments. And that was critical because it was not just about moving apps to the cloud, but for us in the Army, it was about us leveraging the cloud as a warfighting platform. And this is how we were going to, exchange operational data and mission data across, networks from both tactical to the enterprise. And so we established those accredited environments. We actually were successful in migrating over 300 systems to the cloud just in 1 year. That included, by the way, 3 of our most complex SAP ERP systems. And this is, one that, we were very cautious about. We were concerned, but we did a lot of planning and the work that went into it. And so that was, so that got a lot of credibility behind us, a lot of wind behind our backs to let people know that, hey, cloud is real and we can actually modernize and migrate at scale in the Army. The second was really around, starting to modernize our network, because at the end of the day, when we are collecting such large volumes of data today, as we are, I mean, every one of our weapon system platforms is now censored to collect and integrate data. It was really important for us to make sure we had the right networks in place, and so we established the concept of the unified network that brings together, literally 42 different networks right here in the United States, and put them under a unified construct to enable interoperability and that seamless exchange of information across our networks. And
hey, Raj, if I may, let me ask you to pull in your third one there. And then I want to bring these other folks in to roll through some of these accomplishments.
Yeah, and the third one was we wanted to make sure that we gave our users, the collaboration capabilities to work in a remote environment. So we established our Army 365, which is our Office 365 environment, as a software as a service. That enabled our users to collaborate, in a remote environment. So it was a good balance across, being strategically focused as well as, being operationally focused near term. And I'd say we've done a tremendous job in year 1.
And congratulations. That's a heck of a year, massive footprint, and what a diverse mission set you were describing there. That's very interesting. Sunny, it just strikes me now that I noticed that actually all of you relatively new into these roles and massive footprints that you have out there. A lot of moving parts over at CBP. Sunny, tell us about how the year's gone.
No, it's thank you. First of all, good morning, and thank you very much for the opportunity to share some of the great things that our team has done. Obviously been doing this for 36 years and as a 5-time CIO and twice as a department CIO. This one is my first year as well here in this full role in official capacity, and then of course another 9 months in acting. I'll just say that CBP, just like Raj said, we all are obviously a 24/7, 365 mission, operating at that speed of mission. And I think this year had the biggest unprecedented challenges, and yet I think this was our best year in terms of accomplishment. And that just is a testament to the team on the government and contractors working together. If you think about it in retrospect, the largest global pandemic and operating completely remotely and seamlessly all throughout, no worries, as the largest law enforcement organization in the United States and one of the largest in the world. Second, the largest border surge in 21 years, and we handled that. Third, the largest airlift in history with Operation Allies Welcome that Raj talked about. Obviously, CBP played a big role in that operation, and I'll talk about that as the biggest accomplishment that I'd like to just focus on as one of the many accomplishments. Fourth, we had one of the largest cyber events that CBP withstood and was not affected by that. In terms of supply chain and SolarWinds. So we were successful in blocking that and not being affected by it. And while we're doing all this, due to COVID, the travel fee collection was less. So we had also budget shortfalls. So when people get together and do this, and with all these four things coming together, I've never seen that in my 36 years, and I've been in some pretty important roles.
I'll just say that incoming scenarios there, Sonny.
Yeah, if you think about those four scenarios, and to complement again what Raj was saying, and I'm sure my colleagues will say the same thing, is that this shows the strength of the federal worker, the U.S. Spirit that we are all about, and how we all banded together. And when we were just challenged, we all came together and showed our best as a country and also as a government, a U.S. government. So I'm really proud of that. I think the top accomplishment, I'll say, amongst all of these, was that we were asked to do this airlift and support this Operation Allies Refuge and Operation Allies Welcome, in the August timeframe, if you would. And so we immediately made sure that we can, process around, I think overall we processed over 85,000 folks who've come in various capacities. Then you have to make sure they're all vetted to make sure they're safe. And we're safe in terms of who's coming in and who's what. And so with that, we partnered with all the other agencies, including DoD, and then how do we actually make sure we're comporting with all the laws and making that happen. We use facial recognition to allow us to process people faster. And in fact, the Joint Chiefs said that it was one of the most amazing technologies that they've seen, and were complimenting us in one of the meetings. So I think that, as was relayed to us by the DHS CIO, Eric Heisen, was also doing a great job. So I think we set up an OIT incident command center on a 24/7 basis. We staffed it with OIT staff, which were just sort of making sure that everything was, being done with volunteers to make sure timely and concise communications was being done. We did application coding and programming so that we were able to, from the field, that means, from what we call the lily pads, which were some of the DoD locations and other locations where the airlift people were brought into first the zone of safety and then process them there. If our agents and officers saw something in the field, we were able to use our agile SDLC and software development to deploy capabilities within a day or two. I mean, they had capability on the phone. They said, "Oh, can you do this?" Sure, boom, and then send it back on the mobile phone with the facial recognition and 2-second adjudication on certain capabilities that we deployed. It was amazing. So we supported obviously overseas locations with necessary IT equipment. We actually had people go over there, and then we had good partnership, with Army and other folks who let us into their bases and made sure that as a government we were all working together, setting up networks and communicating with each other to process these tens of thousands of nationals. We developed this functionality, as I mentioned, to query Afghan refugees by photo and biographic data. So we were also then enabling TSA agents to identify domestic travelers using the CBP One app against the Operation Allies Refuge targeting platform to make sure the refugees' boarding passes were checked against the results of photo or biographic query. We uploaded manifests when the airline carriers could not send them through the CBP system, so we provided continuous support to OFO so that we can support the creation of foreign sites to vet travelers boarding these repatriation flights. We did a data share interface between CBP and USCIS, United States Citizenship and Immigration Services, for non-immigrant populations to create alien files, a file with specific OAR information like facial recognition data. So this expanded the data sharing practice, greatly reducing the intake time and facilitating more rapid process for refugees. It was quite unprecedented. We worked with DoD in data sharing, which greatly expedited the processing. In fact, we had an automated daily admissions report and an interactive dashboard providing real-time information on data, including Afghan unaccompanied minors, because a lot of these were children who may have not been there with parents or other. And so to handle that, it was a humanitarian thing. And then We also, deployed personnel to the 6 overseas DoD locations and established a data network presence, like I mentioned, with CBP officers and U.S. Border Patrol agents to conduct initial processing of all of these, and expanded this to 24/7 at 5 U.S. airports so that we can process these very fast. Lastly, I'll just say this. I have some people who were also immigrants to this country, who are from Afghanistan, and other people who are immigrants to this country, proud to be U.S. citizens. They went and volunteered to do translation services and other things, and it's personal. And that's what makes America great, in my view, that we welcome these folks, we honored our obligation, and we served, and it was really emotional for people that they actually saw this through. And I was there also at a lot of these locations in the United States, welcoming these folks or seeing how the system and process is working. And I can tell you, it's very satisfying to be a U.S. government employee and to be a citizen of the United States doing this kind of mission. It was something that we'll remember forever.
Wow. And what a fantastic example of whole of government, right? People don't realize how complex these various things are. So thank you for outlining that, Sunny, and bringing up that very comprehensive use case and certainly very important one and special one. Keith, you've been over there just about a year, not quite, I think 10 months, if I got my math right. And a lot of moving parts over there at State Department. I know you're moving and shaking. Tell us about the accomplishments, what you've sort of gotten yourself into over there and how it's going.
Good afternoon. Yeah, it's been actually it's been closer to a year as of January 21st.
Right.
21st on the ground, but certainly me coming back into government after having an abbreviated retirement from DHS, it's been really a great role to serve in. And I tell you, the work, I couldn't be pleased any better with the workforce that I have and the commitment that they have. But first, let me start off and talk a little bit about the vision that I have for our U.S. diplomats, because really everything flows from that. Really want to see our diplomats be regarded as tech-savvy diplomats, and really the State Department moving to have a reputation for applying technology effectively, to make sure that we're influencing and changing people's lives. We want to utilize technology to empower people and advance democracy and protect human rights abroad. With that said, I think when I think about what we accomplished in 21, I being the second political appointee as a CIO there at State Department, and just imagine coming in, not really having a State Department background, but really understanding and connecting with folks and a totally different culture, and making sure, I understand how things work and taking the time to do that, really working my way across the department, reaching out to assistant secretaries, a lot of actings in place. As the year went on, we got more permanent individuals in their seats, which really helped, but at least the mission kept going forward. And when you look at it, from looking at telework, State Department was more of a fortress when it came to mobility and things like that. There was no remote access, no remote work by our diplomats. And so you talk about continuing to enable a workforce of over 100,000 users, and at the same time having to increase our vigilance in protecting our networks from cyber intrusions. We have a global presence around the world. Our diplomats, around, there's always something going on 24/7. We had tough situations in Kabul, Addis Ababa, and Khartoum, ranging from full-scale evacuations to military coups. Some of the toughest environments one could imagine for making sure our IT services continued unabated and are discontinued when operations need to be halted. This thing about Afghanistan, in particular, a huge foreign policy challenge for us this year. But I tell you, the coordination, the work of our teams, and this is not only within state, but also working across government. And we had to develop an application where we helped, really connect everyone together. And we were able to leverage that application working with DHS. We passed it on to DHS eventually, but we had a lot of great work. I recall even the last days of in Afghanistan, we were having to send individuals in from Washington to Afghanistan to really help out as we close that out. But really some tough situations. Our operations folks were operating, it was a 24/7 cadence and heartbeat where many of our folks were getting probably limited hours of sleep, given the situation that was going on. Everyone on calls, making sure we were all engaged, and at the same time, looking at cyber incidents that were ongoing. And as you may know, or others may not know, the State Department is the most targeted department when it comes to cybersecurity, where our adversaries would really love to get into the State Department, understand what's going on, whether it's a treaty, whether it's trade secrets or whatever, negotiations and tactics. Always a constant battle for us in making sure that we're always protecting our environment. I mean, when you look at another accomplishment, I think our ATL backlog, we were able to reduce our ATL backlog. State Department has had a tough challenge around that in recent years, and really just bringing team focus on eliminating that backlog and getting more to a very good cadence, bringing in some various technologies to support that. Our removal of 90% of obsolete software and hardware across the department, going on with that. And early in my tenure, we launched Bureau scorecards, where we started looking at what programs were accomplishing and where they stood from a cybersecurity perspective. We introduced cyber sprints, where we were really ensuring that we were driving cyber hygiene across the department. And then, more importantly here, we had our constant changes in our leadership team. And I got to the point where now we have 4 new appointments to our senior leadership team, including a new principal deputy CIO, 2 new deputy CIOs onboarded the department's first enterprise chief information security officer, and more recently onboarding our first ever chief diversity officer for the IRM Bureau. So really a lot of things going on. I think we introduced next generation passport midsummer, and that's been going really well over there in consular affairs. So just a lot of activity, a lot of work going on, and really, making sure that we're driving customer centricity across our organization. I want to ensure that, our folks start living that and start breathing that. So as we look to rebrand and invigorate our organization, that we're thinking customer first across the board. And we're not thinking so much about what's going on solely in the Bureau, but what's going on for the department and what are we doing for the department to ensure that our diplomats have everything they need and are using technology effectively. But really, Afghanistan was certainly the biggest challenge for us, and the situation that we all can look back and be proud of. I had the opportunity to meet the last, 6 or 8 information management staff that were there in Afghanistan. They came in and they met us at our senior leadership offsite, and it was a great moment for the department. So that's I'll close there because I know we have to move on, but certainly lots of great things that came out of the department in 21. Thanks.
Right. That's been a heck of 11 months there, a lot of operational moving parts, and congratulations on laying the tracks down and getting your leadership installed throughout all of that, all those various events. Well, we're going to take a short break and we'll be right back. You're listening to the Federal Executive Forum on Federal News Network.